How a popcorn girl shocked a millionaire CEO among 83 finalists. You won't believe this. It was an ordinary summer afternoon at the county fair, where laughter mingled with the sweet, buttery aroma of popcorn, but something extraordinary was about to unfold. Among the hustle and bustle of competing attractions and dazzling prize booths, the tension crackled in the air, thick as candy floss. The town was alive, yet at the center of it all stood a timid young girl named Emily, clutching a small paper cone overflowing with popcorn, her heart racing like a roller coaster. She had snuck in among a crowd of 83 finalists vying for a life-changing opportunity, a chance to impress a powerful millionaire CEO. Emily was supposed to be just another face in the crowd, but strange things began to happen. As she watched the finalists perform their tricks, from a flaming baton twirler to a magician with smoke and mirrors, one thing stood out eerily. Shadows seemed to bend around her while whirlwinds of laughter faded, making way for a thick silence. All eyes turned to her. The atmosphere felt charged, like static electricity before a thunderstorm. Suddenly, she felt a shiver run down her spine. Could it be the feel of those piercing gazes? Or was it something more? With each passing moment, she could feel an inexplicable pull, a magnetic force luring her into the spotlight. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Why her?" they whispered. "Who is she?" Little did they know, Emily wasn't just any girl, she had a secret. Every kernel she served was sprinkled with a hand-picked mystery, a dash of courage, hidden within the sweet flavor of her popcorn. Just as the CEO, a man known for his cutthroat nature and ice-cold demeanor, was about to call the next finalist, Emily's courage took hold. She stepped forward. The crowd gasped, a ripple of shock permeated the air. Was this little girl really stepping out? A simmering tension filled the space between breaths. The spotlight illuminated her trembling hands, and as she stood before the man, a whisper of destiny hung around her like a silk scarf fluttering in the wind. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." As Emily locked eyes with the CEO, she felt a jolt of adrenaline unlike anything she had ever experienced. The world around her faded, and time stood still as she spoke. The crowd was mesmerized, their anticipation thick enough to cut. How could this popcorn girl possibly stand a chance against those seasoned finalists? What would she say that could shake the foundation of his empire? But just as her lips parted to unveil her surprise, an unexpected explosion of fireworks erupted in the background, drowning her voice, and the CEO's gaze shifted, taken by the dazzling show. Confusion painted Emily's features, a moment built on the edge of destiny now crumbling. What had she lost in that burst of light? What secrets did her popcorn truly hold? All around, whispers rose and pulses quickened. Did she even stand a chance now? Would she really shock the millionaire CEO? The crowd shifted restlessly, eyes wide in anticipation. The air thickened with mystery, an unresolved enigma lingering in the wake of fireworks. What would happen next? Emily stood frozen, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Disorientation washed over her as the colorful bursts of fireworks filled the night sky, redirecting all attention away from her. She felt small, invisible, as if the world had shifted and left her behind. The whispers around her echoed like a sorrowful song. Did she lose her chance? What was she thinking? But there was still a glimmer, tucked deep within her. Emily's mind raced back to the kernels of courage she had infused into her popcorn, each one steeped in her dreams. This was more than just a competition. This was real life, and she had to try, regardless of the chaos swirling around her. Gradually, the impressive display of fireworks began to fizzle out. With each crackle fading, Emily felt that internal spark ignite again. She had to speak, she needed to share her truth before it vanished into thin air like the smoke from the fireworks. With determination coursing through her veins, she willed herself to step closer to the CEO. The crowd had shifted its focus again, expectant eyes now glued to the powerful figure who had been temporarily entranced by the spectacle. He stood tall and intimidating, his expression lingering between confusion and amusement. He wasn't used to surprises, and yet here she was, a mere popcorn girl aiming to turn the tide. "Excuse me," Emily shouted, her voice surprising her, coming out stronger than she felt. All eyes turned back to her, some expressing curiosity, others skepticism. She met the CEO's gaze head-on, her heart racing but her mind clear. I have something to share. Something you've never tasted before." A whisper of disbelief rippled across the audience. Who was she to demand their attention amidst competing talents? But in that moment, the little girl in her stood proud, fueled by an unspoken promise to herself. "Popcorn isn't just a snack," she continued, emboldened. "It's a story. Every kernel represents a wish, a dream. Every time someone bites into it, they experience a little bit of magic, my magic." The CEO raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. There was something captivating in the way Emily spoke, an earnestness that cut through the air like a hot knife through butter. The audience hung on her every word, but just as the tension began to shift toward her, a tan-skinned girl, another finalist, shoved her way to the front. "What nonsense! This is a competition about talent, not fairy tales." Her laughter sliced through the crowd, and a few people chuckled along, dismissing Emily's vision. Emily's confidence faltered for a heartbeat. Had she made a fool of herself? Doubt clawed at her mind, but she couldn't let it win. "No," she declared louder, clutching the cone of popcorn tighter. "It's about believing in the impossible. If I can sell popcorn infused with dreams, imagine what can happen when you believe in your own." Gasps spread through the onlookers. This wasn't just about popcorn anymore, it was about the power of belief, of dreams, and the unexpected. As breaths held in suspense, she turned her attention back to the CEO. "I challenge you to taste it. Challenge you to experience what I've created." Silence blanketed the scene. The CEO's expression shifted, curiosity creeping in, intrigued by her passion. But would he accept her challenge? Was he ready to taste the magic hidden within those popcorn kernels? As he opened his mouth, the entire fair seemed to hold its breath, a collective gasp hanging on the edge of reality. Would he finally validate her dream, or would he dismiss her with an icy wave? That moment carried a weight heavier than all the fireworks combined, leaving the air thick with expectation. Just then, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble echoed through the fairgrounds. The crowd gasped as a nearby booth toppled over, calling attention to a looming shadow approaching swiftly from behind. What was happening? In one fleeting instant, Emily felt the stakes rise higher than she could have ever imagined. What if everything she had worked for was on the line? Could she trust her instincts? What awaited them in the shadows? The air hung heavy with uncertainty as Emily braced herself for what was coming. A chilling wind swept through the fairgrounds, sending shivers down Emily's spine. Eyes darted around, the once vibrant atmosphere now thick with terror. What was this shadow that had disrupted her moment? It loomed closer, and she felt her heart hammering even faster. "Did you feel that?" Someone whispered from the back of the crowd, voice shaky. Gasps erupted as the shadow took form, an enormous, vibrant figure that seemed to suck the light from the sky. It was a giant, animatronic carnival puppet, designed for entertainment but now moving with an unsettling speed. Its wide grin felt more menacing under the flickering lights. "What the heck?" Another voice cried out, and a few people stumbled backward, tripping over their own feet in panic. Emily's gaze locked onto the CEO, who stood equally frozen, his jaw slack. In the chaos, the popcorn cone slipped from her fingers, hitting the ground with a loud crunch that echoed like a gunshot through the fearful crowd. "Run!" someone shouted, and suddenly everyone was scrambling, shoving and pushing as they fled from the looming puppet. The laughter that once filled the air transformed into panic, chaos cascading through the fairgrounds like a wave, but Emily didn't move. With adrenaline coursing through her, she turned back to the CEO, the glimmer of her dream igniting again in her chest. She had poured her heart into that popcorn, into every kernel a mix of laughter, memories, and dreams. Would she let fear consume her? "Wait," she yelled, stepping boldly in front of the CEO. "Taste it. You need to taste it now." She could feel the heat of the creature behind her, the eyes of the onlookers pressing into her back. She was terrified, but there was something to prove not just to him, but to herself. The CEO blinked out of his stupor. She could see the mix of emotions flashing across his face: confusion, surprise, and even a hint of intrigue. His eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, had narrowed down to her and the popcorn that lay scrambled on the ground. "Do you think this is the time for your silly games?" he shouted over the commotion. But his voice trembled slightly. It was a challenge hidden in doubt. "Exactly," Emily shot back, determination flooding her voice. "We'll either face this or live in fear. But one thing's for sure, there's magic in believing." The puppet suddenly jerked, its massive arms flailing grotesquely as it came dangerously close, shaking the ground. With every grain of her being, Emily tightened her resolve. If she could harness this moment, this absurd whirlwind, maybe she could awaken the crowd from its fear. "Here." She quickly stooped down, scooping up the fallen popcorn. She barely noticed that the crowd had halted, mesmerized by her conviction. All eyes were on her again, the animatronic threat momentarily forgotten. "Experience the magic." Her voice rang out, bold and unwavering. She held out a handful of kernels toward the CEO, who hesitated. In that heartbeat, as all eyes focused on them, the tension morphed from fear to curiosity. His fingers brushed against the popcorn, and she noticed an unexpected spark in his otherwise composed demeanor. But then the puppet shifted again, louder this time, sending the remaining crowd into a riot of panic. What was it going to take for him to trust her? For them all to believe again? Just then, the ground buckled one more time, and Emily had to fight back a scream as the lights flickered ominously. "Emily!" the CEO yelled, steely determination back in his voice. "Are you willing to risk it all?" For a moment, silence enveloped them, the world narrowing down to just the two of them. She could feel the weight of her dreams hanging in the balance. "Yes," she shouted back, her heartbeat steadying, resolute. "I will. But what about you? Will you join me?" The words left her mouth like an incantation, and as the puppet lurched forward one last time, she caught a glimpse of doubt flash across the CEO's face. Would he dare lean into the chaos beside her? Before she could ponder further, the fearsome puppet lunged, and Emily braced herself, ready for anything. Would he risk it all with her, or would he back down? The air crackled with uncertainty as the future of her dreams dangled precariously between them, waiting for the next shocking turn. What lay ahead could change everything. What were they willing to sacrifice? The puppet's mouth opened wide, letting out a guttural roar that sent a fresh wave of terror through the fairgrounds. Emily barely flinched. In that instant, time felt suspended. Her heart raced, but so did her mind, calculating, plotting. This was her moment. The vibrant puppet was more than a threat, it was the spark of opportunity she craved. Do it for the dream, she yelled, spinning around to face the crowd again, her arms raised high with a handful of popcorn. "We're here to believe in something bigger. Who's with me?" Chaos erupted as people continued to flee, yet Emily knew some were still watching her, frozen between fear and fascination. She locked eyes with the CEO, who stood just beyond reach. The shadow of doubt still haunted his expression, but she sensed it wavering. "Simon," she urged, her voice slicing through the chaos. Do you want to let fear win? An answering shout came from the back, an unexpected voice piercing the tumult. I'll stand with you. A brave figure emerged from the grasp of panic, a woman whose eyes shone with determination. Others began to nod, as if Emily's spell was lifting them one by one from their paralysis. The puppet lunged again, its lights flashing wildly, reflecting the raw emotions now bubbling among the crowd. But instead of scattering, a few brave souls began to step forward. They were drawn to Emily's courage like moths to a flame, their fear melting away in the light of her resolve. Together! Emily shouted, thrusting her popcorn forward as though it were a magic wand. We'll show this puppet what belief can do. The CEO watched, a flicker of admiration breaking through his uncertainty. But just as Emily felt hope swell within her chest, the ground shook violently. The puppet had begun a thrumming dance, its joints creaking like an ominous clock winding down. In one final roar, it flung its massive arm into the air, sending a rain of confetti flying across the fairgrounds. Beauty collided with dread. What is going on? Murmurs rippled through the crowd, eyes widened. A collective gasp filled the air, a shared realization dawning: this wasn't just a fight. It was a choice between fear and unity, chaos and purpose. Believe! Emily cried again, her voice commanding now. She flung the popcorn into the air. The kernels twinkled like stars against the pitch-black sky, invigorating the besieged crowd. Dance! Let the puppet watch us live. And against all odds, they started to gather, pulling together in a circle, hands clasped, bodies moving to an unspoken rhythm. What had begun as an escape now formed a solidarity, a testament to the human spirit rising from the ashes of fear. But then, despite their courage, the puppet began to shift again, its massive body going still as if it sensed the change in the crowd. For a split second, time froze. The carnival lights flickered erratically. Do you feel that? Someone whispered, dread flooding back into the atmosphere. An undercurrent of dark energy pulsed through the ground, crackling at their feet. Don't look away. Emily urged, her voice unyielding despite the tension. We can't let it intimidate us. But no sooner had she said it than the puppet's head turned toward her, its grin stretching impossibly wide. A deep, rumbling laughter escaped its maw, an echo of mockery that sent shivers of dread spiraling through the circle they formed. What does it want? Someone whimpered, a tremble in their voice. With a flick of its wrist, the puppet unleashed an explosion of confetti, darkening the sky with swirling colors that twisted like storm clouds. Emily felt her heartbeat sinking with the chaos around her. Would all they built up in just moments collapse like a house of cards? As the last of the swirling colors faded, the puppet's eyes locked on Emily. A piercing gaze filled with unsettling knowledge that sent a chill down her spine, leaving her breathless. In this moment of anticipation, she could either buckle under the pressure or lean fully into her chaotic dream. And then, as if daring her, the puppet's mouth opened wider than ever, a new sound forming. Something ominous, a chant rising above the thickening uncertainty. What was it asking for? The answer could change everything once more. Would she dare to find out? Emily's pulse raced, each beat hammering in her ears. The puppet's chant rang louder, a throaty melody vibrating through the ground and unsettling her very core. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the faces around her, revealing a variety of expressions: fear, confusion, curiosity, and a flicker of hope. Stay together, she shouted, though her resolve wavered. The puppet's gaze pierced through her, knowing, calculating. What was it trying to communicate? This moment felt like the calm before a storm, each second stretching into an eternity. Then the puppet's laughter echoed again, this time a trilling sound that twisted with something sinister. The crowd began to murmur, unease creeping back into their collective energy. Emily couldn't let them falter now. With renewed focus, she raised her hands above her head, palms open wide. You have to believe in yourselves. Don't let it take away our magic, she urged, her voice unwavering even though she felt the ground quaking beneath their feet. One by one, the hesitations began to fade. Her words acted like fuel, igniting collective courage. She could see the fight returning in their eyes. We're not victims here. We're creators of our own fate. The puppet flared its eyes, a momentary flicker of annoyance darting across its imposing features before it launched itself forward, rippling through the crowd like a tidal wave. Gasps erupted around her, but Emily stood firm. The rush of adrenaline surged through her, propelling her towards the looming figure. A short distance from her, a boy no older than 10 stood frozen, his wide eyes reflecting the swirling madness. Emily sprinted towards him, weaving through the chaos, and grasped his arm tightly. We're going to dance, okay? Just follow my lead. Without waiting for a reply, she pulled him along, calling out, everyone, form a line. Let us move together. As they danced in sync, the puppet tilted its head, mesmerized by the infectious energy rising from the crowd. Emily's heart swelled with triumph. They were working together, channeling their collective fear into something powerful. But just as they fully transformed from chaos to rhythm, the puppet exploded in a burst of light, spreading shards of confetti that danced like autumn leaves. The deafening sound of snaps and cracks roared through the fairgrounds, cutting through their newfound harmony. The lights dimmed, and shadows flickered ominously. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis, the threat growing heavier. Suddenly, the chant morphed into a harsh, discordant warning. "What's it saying?" someone screamed. Emily's mind raced, straining to grasp the words tangled in the puppet's monstrous voice. Was it a prophecy, a command, or something darker yet? She felt the boy she had rescued clutch her hand tighter. The puppet's grip tightened on the very fabric of their reality, the chant amplifying an ancient fear that threatened to consume them all. In that moment, an icy realization washed over Emily. The puppet wasn't just a figure of fear, it was a guardian of secrets. Secrets that the crowd was too blind to see, and whose revelation would either save them or seal their fate. "What do you want from us?" she shouted defiantly, her heart pounding against her ribs. More than anything, she knew she needed to prove her strength through unity. The answer lay not just in her voice but within each person holding on to the moment they created together. The puppet paused, its laughter fading. Silence swallowed the fairgrounds. Then, just as Emily might have thought she could understand, the puppet's mouth curled back into a grin, a promise, a challenge. And as the stillness settled, a shiver crept through the crowd. The puppet raised both arms, summoning a wave of darkness that hung over them like a looming cloud. It was time for the truth to unfold, and with it, the real battle was just beginning. Would they brave whatever the puppet unleashed? Would their courage stand firm against the darkness? As the puppet prepared to reveal its true intentions, Emily held her breath. What lay beneath the surface of this enchanted nightmare, and could they emerge from it together? The darkness felt alive, pulsating with a menacing energy that wrapped around Emily and those gathered with her. The air grew thick, oppressive, and she could feel the weight of fear pressing down on her shoulders. The puppet's grin widened, revealing rows of jagged teeth that seemed to gleam with sinister delight. Flashlights flickered, and whispers filled the void where laughter had once echoed. "What is happening?" a girl nearby whispered, her voice trembling. Emily could see confusion knitting brows and fear sparking in the eyes of friends who had once stood firmly against the puppet's threat. "Focus. We must stand strong," Emily shouted, her own voice now a small tremor swallowed by the growing darkness. She turned to the boy beside her, his eyes wide and glistening with tears. "You're brave, remember? Show them what we can do." With those words, something shifted in the crowd. With instinct born from terror, a few people began to mimic the boy's dance, moving their bodies in flowing waves, as if to contest the dark energy rising from the puppet's grip. The uniform sway began to spread, igniting flickers of bravery here and there. But the puppet wasn't done. With sharp, sudden movements, it swung its arms downwards, and a heavy hiss echoed through the air. It wasn't just a puppet, it was a storm ready to unleash its fury. The ground rumbled, and an unnatural chill swept through the crowd, paralyzing even the boldest. What if this is it? Someone gasped nearby, and Emily's heart sank. The darkness seemed drawn to their doubts, feeding off their fears. She needed to push through. Remember why we came here. She shouted. This is our fairground. We are its heartbeat. Connect with me. Her courage began to resonate like a rippling wave. The boy next to her squeezed her hand tighter, and with a deep breath, he moved away from her. The boy started to twirl, his movements full of life, a wall of light rising with every spin he took. See? It can't dim our magic. Emily encouraged, and slowly, the crowd took heart. What once felt like ice in her chest was starting to thaw into warmth, the puppeteer's power flickering like a dying flame. Each person found their footing, one by one, shaking off the grasp of despair, but as they danced, the puppet's chant grew more frenzied, drowning out their laughter and energy. The oppressive darkness writhed, and suddenly, the boundary between nightmare and reality began to fracture. In that chaos, a series of bright colors burst forth, illuminating the dark sky above. The night itself cracked open, spreading vibrant chaos. Emily's breath caught. Amidst the colorful chaos came figures, faces raised in fear and wonder. They loomed large like mountains breaking through the horizon. 100 past performers from the fair, conjured from the depths of the puppet's magic. Where did they come from? Someone murmured, eyes wide. Each figure, each performer bore a ridge of sadness and sorrow in their eyes. Emily's heart dropped. They were taken just like us. She needed to reach them. Before she could take a step, however, the puppet's laughter echoed, deep and resounding, drowning out her thoughts. The crowd began to falter again, fear creeping back through their brave ensemble. She glanced at the boy and felt the fear radiating from him. We can't let them take control. We need to break their hold. As she shouted this, the puppet's eyes locked onto her with a piercing glare, and the crowd collectively gasped. The darkness began to swirl, forming a cyclone of shadows that threatened to engulf them all. The truth of the situation came crashing into her. Each moment we hesitate, we play into its hands. Emily realized, desperation sparking an urgency she couldn't ignore. We must unite. Together, we can shatter its hold. Just as she prepared to lead another round of movement, the puppet unleashed a torrential wave of shadows, the world around them dimming further. Standing for the fight ahead, she shouted, "You are stronger than this darkness. Fight with me, with all your hearts." What would happen when they did? So? Would their bond solidify into a shield against the encroaching darkness, or would it leave a chasm too great to bridge? As they readied themselves for the ultimate confrontation, Emily wondered, could their collective strength measure up to the puppet's ancient power? Would they emerge whole, or succumb one by one to its grasp? The fate of their reality hung in the balance, and the true battle had only just begun. The shadows surged forward, howling like tormented spirits as they reached toward the heart of their gathering. Emily felt their icy fingers brush against her skin, a reminder of the malevolent force they were up against. She couldn't falter. Not now. Move. Dance. Emily cried, her voice ringing with fierce determination. The warmth she felt moments before was slipping again, so she tightened her grip on the boy's hand. With a surge of willpower, they spun together, urging the crowd to join. Their movements began to channel a raw, vibrant energy. Yet, beneath their newfound bravery, the crowd hesitated, fear still rooting them in place. Remember who we are. We're not just shadows in this fairground, we are its spirits. Let our hearts beat together. She felt an urgency pulse through her, a need to connect every individual's hope into one powerful current. The boy nodded, determination igniting in his tear-stained eyes. Let us show it our light. The two of them propelled further into the flow of dance, and suddenly, the others joined in, each person connected by their shared desire to break free. As their collective rhythm reached its peak, the puppet writhed in rage. It threw its arms up, and a shrill scream echoed through the night, a sound both chilling and furious. "You think you can defy me?" it bellowed, the shadows writhing around it like snakes eager for prey. The colorful forms of past performers began to swirl around the crowd, their faces now twisted with grim realizations. These were creatures of joy turned into mere vessels of despair. They were the puppeteer's trophies, but they shone with a glimmer of hope. Emily realized that if they rose together, the performers might find their freedom. And so might they. "Don't let it take you," she shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "We are the heartbeat. We define our reality." The shadows began to retreat, drawn back slowly as the crowd surged forward in a burst of light, like a tide unrelenting. Emily could feel the energy coalescing, shifting around her, and suddenly, her heart aligned with the spirit of every performer engulfed in those swirling colors. Just then, a high-pitched wail pierced the air. "Stop! You belong to me." The puppet's face twisted with anger, its jagged teeth laced with fury and desperation. It lunged forward, a mass of darkness and chaos, clever fingers reaching to snatch the nearest creature of light. In that moment, something strange began to happen. The more the crowd pushed back, the more their light grew. Emily saw the boy beside her transforming. His spin became a whirlwind of brightness. The crowd followed, a unified entity pulling each other up, lifting their spirits higher, yet with every ounce of power they generated, the puppet, too, swelled with fury. A torrent of shadows crashed down, swirling around them like a relentless storm cloud. Emily's pulse raced as she fought to maintain her focus. "We need to unite completely. Don't just dance, feel. Let your heart guide you." But just as her words left her lips, the soil beneath their feet began to shake violently. "Emily!" the boy cried, his voice barely breaking through the chaos. "We need to." The noisy onslaught of the puppet's magic became almost unbearable, vibrating through their bones. Suddenly, from the dark eddy, a pair of glowing eyes glared fierce and intent, hovering just above the puppet's now twisted frame. "What is happening?" someone screamed. The surrounding crowd gasped, uncertainty creeping back into their ranks as the puppet shifted, ready to unleash an unholy wrath. Could they endure this darkness? Would their light finally shatter the hold of the puppet? The battle reached its boiling point, and yet Emily felt a different fear coiling in her stomach. What if they couldn't recover the lost spirits? As the cyclone of shadows intensified, crackling with energy, a piercing question lingered in the air: would they break free, or would despair pull them into the depths where no light could shine? The ground trembled, and a suffocating fear washed over the crowd as the puppet's dark energy surged like a tidal wave. Emily felt the boy's grip tighten, desperation painted on his face as if he could feel the darkness gnawing at the edges of their hope. She swallowed hard, her throat tight with anxiety. "Stay together," she shouted, trying to sound brave when her heart raced like a trapped bird. "Remember the light within us." But all around them, people faltered, their dance faltering under the weight of shadows threatening to pull them under. The colorful spirits of past performers started to dim, their hope flickering like dying stars. "No!" Emily cried out. "Not now. We have to fight." She turned back to the boy, and her heart sank. "We can't let them control us. Fight back." But as he nodded, uncertainty flickered through his eyes, shadows creeping closer around them. Suddenly, the puppet, its shape morphed into grotesque contortions, reached out, fingers extending with malicious intent. Emily gasped, seeing it move as if drawn by an unholy magnetism, pulling everyone toward its deathly grasp. "This is just the beginning," it cackled, voice reverberating with echoes of agony and despair. The crowd screamed, a collective wail of fear that struck at Emily's heart. She felt the flickering spark of doubt in her own chest, but she pushed it back. "We can't let it break us." She could feel the pulse of the crowd, a rhythm strained but alive, beating just beneath the surface. We are stronger than this. She yelled, channeling all her energy into the plea. Remember your joy. Dance for your freedom. Let it echo through the shadows. Inspired by her words, the boy spun, and the flickering fire inside him surged brilliantly as others stirred too and began to dance. Slowly, gradually, the crowd mirrored her movements, shyly at first, but gaining strength as their feet found the vibrant pulse of life within. The puppet screamed again, a sound that ripped through the air, almost human, almost pleading. Its distorted face twisted, and Emily could see its fury morphing into panic as their light expanded, pushing back against its darkness. Don't falter. Keep moving. She cried, adrenaline flooding her system. She felt the warmth grow, clash against the biting cold encroaching around them. But the ground shook more violently, and the shadows inched closer. Emily's heart sank deeper, her breath coming in short bursts as terror swept through her. She could sense the spirit of the puppet, fierce and determined, clawing at her, feeding off their fear. With a surge of will, she closed her eyes briefly, feeling every heartbeat of those around her become a part of her own. We are not afraid. The words spilled from her lips, and in that moment, she felt a wave of energy spark from the crowd, exhilarating and rich, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The shadows hesitated, rippling away as that harrowing connection thrummed. For a split second, there was a glimmer. Could they really shatter this malevolent force? The boy's eyes lit up. Emily! He shouted, pointing. She turned, and there, emerging from the darkness, was the glimmering form of a long-lost performer, radiant yet fragile, as if a fragile thread connected their fates. The performer smiled warmly, as though both reassuring and beckoning. Together. Emily gasped. Follow that light. But just as they prepared to surge, the puppet let out a deafening roar that echoed through the night, threatening to drown them all. A solitary thought crashed into Emily's mind as she, the boy, and the crowd tore toward the shimmering figure. Was this glimmer a sign of hope or yet another trick of the puppet? The tension thickened in the air, and Emily could feel an impending clash. Would they unite with the lost souls, or plunge deeper into the puppet's dark grasp? In that split second, she realized everything depended on this next choice. The crowd surged forward, their movements frantic yet purposeful, as the shimmering figure of the long-lost performer glowed ahead. Emily's heart was a drum in her chest, pounding with an urgency that seemed to synchronize with the chaotic rhythm of the shadows creeping closer. Don't look back. Stay focused. She shouted, but her voice trembled, each syllable laced with fear as the puppet's rage intensified like a thunderstorm. The air crackled with unseen energy, the taste of dread pooling in her mouth. With every step, she felt the heat radiating from the figure, an anchor pulling her toward hope. It was a surreal contrast to the icy fingers of fear that clawed at her mind. We can do this. We will not let it win. She urged, surging ahead, fueled by the fire igniting around her. The crowd flowed behind her like a river of light, each dancer drawing from Emily's resolve, their spirits intertwining. The shadows seemed to waver, caught between wanting to devour them and recoiling from the flickering courage. But then, the puppet roared again, a sound so fierce that it sent shockwaves through the collective. You think you can escape? It screeched, laughter ringing with blood-curdling menace. I am darkness. I will feast on your hope. Emily felt that cold dread wash over her again, as if the ground beneath her was swallowing her whole. But in that moment, she remembered the flickering lights of those who had danced before, artists, dreamers, and souls who once celebrated life. They're coming with us. She shouted, drawing on that strength. The boy beside her, driven by her fervor, let out a cry. We want to be scared. The light is our weapon. With renewed purpose, they pressed forward, inspired by the luminous figure shimmering in the darkness. Just then, the puppet lunged, its grotesque visage twisting with rage as it reached for the boy, long fingers extending like spindly blades. Time seemed to slow as Emily gasped, her stomach dropping at the sight. No! Her voice sliced through the tension, and she bounded forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins. In a split second, she realized the puppet was not just a monster, it was their collective fear given form. And it could be defeated. Emily jumped, reaching for the boy's hand just as the puppet's fingers brushed against him. Together! She yelled again, clutching his arm. We fight as one. With an explosive burst of defiance, the crowd echoed the sentiment, voices rising in harmony, a melody of triumph cutting through the swirling chaos. It was a surge of sound and light that emanated from their collective will, a surge powerful enough to shatter the darkness. The illuminating spirit before them intensified, shooting out beams like firework petals, piercing the curtain of shadows. The puppet shrieked, its form rippling as the light met it head-on, battling against the darkness that clung to its edges. Keep going! Emily shouted, feeling the empowerment of everyone around her, a wave of hope crashing against the tide of despair. She could see the puppet quivering, caught in the crossfire of light and shadow, its mocking laughter now twisted into something unrecognizable. Suddenly, in the chaos, a figure stepped forward from the crowd, their presence commanding and fierce. Emily squinted, recognizing the determined face of the long-lost performer, now shimmering brilliantly. We can finish this together. They urged, projecting strength into the crowd, but just as they were poised to triumph, the ground beneath them began to quake violently, a powerful rumble that threatened to split their unity in two. Emily struggled to regain her balance. What is happening? She gasped, fear creeping in again as the shadows began to swell. This time, they were not just shadows, they were a tangible entity, an army born of despair, growing bolder, stronger. The spectral performer turned to Emily, eyes dark yet filled with a warning. They will come for more than your light. They will come for your souls. Emily's heart raced. The urgency of their situation was palpable, they were on the brink of something monumental. Yet another question coiled within her mind: would they stand firm against the wave of encroaching darkness, or would they succumb to the malevolent force intent on ripping their unity apart? As the ground trembled, Emily understood, the real battle was just beginning. Emily's heart pounded with fierce determination, the echoes of chaos swirling around her like a storm. She could feel the shadows curling, lurking just beyond the light of their newfound hope. Their collective spirit kept the darkness at bay, but fragility lingered in the air, a reminder of the looming threat posed by the puppet that sought to snuff out their dreams. Together! She shouted again, fueled by the glimmer of unity in the faces before her. Their combined energy surged, a pulse of light brightening the night, igniting a flame of courage. Just as despair threatened to creep back in, the brave figures of the past performers surrounded her, their shimmering forms lending strength to her voice. We are the very essence of this fair, and we refuse to be afraid. We have dreams worth fighting for. In that moment, Emily felt a surge of memories within her, all the laughter, joy, and the sweet aroma of popcorn mingling with dreams filled her heart. She reached down to the boy beside her. Feel it. Dance like it's your last chance. Let our joy drown out the fear. The boy nodded fiercely, his determination and innocence shining like a beacon. The crowd began to move again, their feet finding rhythm, hearts sinking to the beat of belief. The shadows swirled, but instead of retreating in fear, they danced against the darkness. Gasps turned into cheers as more people joined in, their unity transforming the grounds into a vibrant sea of humanity, each person a bright spot against the encroaching darkness. But the puppet roared, deeper and more menacing than before. You think momentary joy can defeat me? I feast on your fears. The darkness thickened, tendrils reaching out, trying to extract that growing light. Emily felt the grip of despair tighten, a suffocating heaviness threatening to pull her and the boy into oblivion. This was more than just a struggle against a puppet, it was a fight for their very spirits. Drawing upon every ounce of her strength, she screamed over the chaos, we must do this for everyone. For those who have come before us and those who will come after. As the puppet lunged toward them with a primal scream, she conjured the brightest memories she could find, the warmth of her family, laughter shared over a bowl of popcorn, the feeling of hope in the most ordinary of moments. We are not just popcorn girls and boys, we are creators. We are here, together, in this moment. With those words, light erupted from them, igniting the dark like fire against ice. The puppet reeled, its laughter turning into furious roars as its form contorted against the light. Vibrant colors burst from the crowd, cascading like fireworks exploding against the night sky, showering the fairground in brilliance and unity. The shadows thrashed, but the light grew stronger, the energy radiating from the crowd creating a protective barrier. One by one, whispers of belief surged through the audience, amplifying until it was a roar, a declaration of collective power. "Stand strong!" shouted the glimmering spirit of the performer. "Let your light shine brighter than the darkness." The crowd encircled Emily and the boy, hearts pounding in rhythm with their unified spirit. As the shadows clawed at them, Emily focused on why they fought. They were fighting for hope, for joy, for the laughter that once filled this fairground. With a final push, they flung out their hands, their voices rising in a mighty crescendo. "We are the light. We will never back down." As one, they unleashed a surge of pure energy toward the puppet, and in that moment, a brilliant flash enveloped them. A shockwave of warmth surged through Emily, filling her with the certainty of their victory. The puppet shrieked, its terrifying laughter dissolving into despair as the collective light engulfed it, tearing through the shadows and revealing the truth within, that all its power was rooted in fear. As the last echoes of the puppet's rage faded into silence, the crowd stood in stunned relief. The world felt brightened, renewed, as colors danced in a tapestry above them, bright and alive. Did we win?" the boy whispered, eyes wide with wonder. Emily smiled, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "Yes, we did. We created our magic together." Around them, the crowd erupted in cheers and laughter, embracing each other, emboldened by what they had overcome. The performers emerged from the shadows, their spirits freed and rejoicing in the vibrant blending of humanity. In that moment of celebration, a new chapter unfolded for the fairground, where dreams would thrive and the tales of courage would be cherished. As Emily finally let the moment wash over her, she knew this wasn't just a victory, it was a promise to never shy away from who they were, to embrace their magic and their dreams. "Let us keep dancing," she urged, raising her hands high. And together, the crowd danced, a whirl of light and laughter, a tribute to the moment when they all chose hope over fear, and as they turned towards a new horizon, Emily felt her heart swell with possibility. They had faced the darkness. They had chosen light. Who knew what other adventures awaited them? But one thing was certain, their dreams would never fade again. Now, before you go, listen up. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And don't hold back, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. Spread the joy, share the magic. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They will thank you for it, and so will we. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let's keep the light shining together.